You open your eyes at 7 in the morning to the piercing screech of your smartphone alarm, scrambling to get dressed for another long day at the office. You squeeze yourself into a packed commuter bus, scrolling through social media while wondering if your ancient ancestors faced this much daily stress. But imagine a completely different reality, one where you walk into your office and the person sitting at the desk next to you is not a modern human. Instead, your coworker has a massive, protruding brow ridge, a flared chest shaped like a wine barrel, and muscles that look twice as thick as yours. Yes, that is a real Neanderthal typing away on a mechanical keyboard. For about 99% of human history, having only one single human species on Earth was a highly unusual anomaly. For hundreds of thousands of years, our Homo sapiens ancestors shared this planet with at least 4 or 5 other distinct human species. Among them, the Neanderthals were our closest, most powerful, and most mysterious cousins. They mastered the harsh, freezing landscapes of Europe and Western Asia for over 300,000 years before suddenly vanishing around 40,000 years ago. Their disappearance left a massive question mark for modern science. What would happen if they never vanished? How would your modern world look if 2 intelligent human species coexisted and built a civilization together? To answer this existential evolutionary question, we must first shatter the primitive stereotypes created by popular culture. In modern Hollywood movies, Neanderthals are almost always portrayed as brutal, dim-witted cavemen who walk with a slouch, grunt instead of speaking, and drag women into caves by their hair. The scientific reality is completely the opposite. Modern archaeological discoveries, particularly the groundbreaking work by Professor Jean-Jacques Hublin at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, have proven that Neanderthals possessed an average brain volume of 1,500 cubic centimeters. This is actually slightly larger than the 1,350 cubic centimeter brain of modern humans living today. They were not stupid. They crafted highly sophisticated stone spears using the Levallois technique, a complex geometric knapping method that required careful planning to flake stone into razor-sharp edges. They controlled fire masterfully to cook complex meals, and they even utilized willow bark containing salicylic acid, the active ingredient in modern aspirin, to treat pain and injuries. At Chauvet Cave in France and Shanidar Cave in Iraq, archaeologists discovered shocking evidence that Neanderthals buried their dead with deep care, even scattering wildflowers over the graves of their loved ones. These are not the behaviors of wild animals. These are the clear expressions of a high-level intelligence capable of emotion, culture, and symbolic spiritual belief. So why did such a powerful and intelligent human species vanish, leaving you alone with your modern office deadlines? The most popular theory in the past suggested that modern Homo sapiens ruthlessly exterminated the Neanderthals with superior weapons during their migration out of Africa. However, modern genetic analyses by Nobel Prize-winning geneticist Svante Pääbo have completely overturned that violent narrative. By sequencing ancient Neanderthal DNA from fossilized bones, he discovered that all living people of non-African descent carry between 1% and 2% Neanderthal DNA in their genomes. What does this actually mean? Modern humans and Neanderthals did not just fight war movies. They loved each other, intermarried, and raised children together. We did not completely wipe them out. We peacefully assimilated them into our expanding populations over thousands of years of coexistence. Now, let us turn the dial on the time machine and assume that the Neanderthal genetic lineage was never diluted into obscurity. Imagine they maintained a separate, thriving population that developed alongside us, all the way into the 21st century. Think about the structure of modern society. The legal definition of humanity in constitutional law and biology textbooks would have to change completely. Fashion retail stores would no longer use standard sizes like medium, large, or extra large. Instead, they would design an entirely separate clothing line called Neanderthal Fit to accommodate customers with shoulders twice as wide as normal, shorter necks, bell-shaped rib cages, and incredibly thick limbs. The global job market would also experience clear specialization based on biological strengths, with superior muscular force and incredibly dense bone structures that resist injury. Neanderthals would likely dominate heavy industries, deep-sea mining, disaster rescue operations, or high-impact sports like weightlifting, boxing, and rugby. No Homo sapiens athlete would stand a chance at winning an Olympic gold medal against a Neanderthal man, whose muscle density evolved to wrestle giant Ice Age cave bears. However, modern urban life would likely be a physiological nightmare for them. Neanderthals evolved specifically to thrive in the freezing, sub-zero temperatures of the Ice Age. Their bodies retain heat exceptionally well, but struggled terribly with cooling down. When a blistering tropical summer hit the city, you could easily walk around in a light t-shirt, but your Neanderthal coworker would likely need the air conditioner blasted at 16 degrees Celsius while constantly drinking crushed ice to avoid heat stroke. The geopolitical map of the world would look entirely different. Because Neanderthals are highly sensitive to extreme heat, they would concentrate their nations and massive megacities in the cold northern territories like Siberia, Canada, Scandinavia, or high-altitude alpine regions. Hot deserts and humid tropical rainforests would belong entirely to Homo sapiens. While this geographic separation might minimize daily conflict, it would also create massive cultural, political, and economic borders between the two intelligent species. The differences would extend far beyond physical appearance or heat tolerance. The core divergence lies deep within brain structure and cognitive processing styles. Neurological studies of Neanderthal skulls reveal that they had a slightly smaller cerebellum, but their occipital lobe at the back of the skull, which processes visual data, was exceptionally large. This means Neanderthals possessed superhuman vision, seeing with incredible clarity in the pitch black of deep caves or through blinding winter blizzards. They were absolute masters of spatial detail and mental mapping. In contrast, Homo sapiens developed a larger frontal lobe, giving us an unmatched ability for abstract thinking, dreaming up myths that do not exist, planning for the distant future, and forming massive social networks. This cognitive difference would reshape the face of modern science and art. Neanderthals, with their hyper-realistic vision and practical mindset, might become genius mechanical engineers, architects of absolute precision, or painters of unparalleled realism who could sketch every single hair on an animal like a digital camera. Conversely, professions relying on wild imagination, abstract philosophies, or complex conceptual systems like stock markets and Bitcoin trading would be dominated by Homo sapiens. Imagine a modern date between the two species on applications like Tinder. An imaginative Homo sapiens girl might write on her profile that she seeks a soulmate to watch sunsets and discuss the meaning of the universe. A practical Neanderthal man would swipe right and immediately ask exactly how many calories of protein they will consume tonight, and whether the restaurant has an efficient ventilation system. This constant clash of perspectives would generate endless comedic and frustrating situations in daily society. But there is a much darker, more serious side that we must confront, which involves racial discrimination and systemic social conflict. The dark history of Homo sapiens has proven that even within our own single species, minor differences in skin tone, religion, or language can cause humans to launch brutal wars against one another. What would happen if our neighbor was an entirely different species? A species with a completely different biological blueprint. Modern society would likely face human rights crises of unprecedented scale. Neanderthals, with a smaller global population due to naturally lower reproductive rates, would risk being pushed to the margins of society as cheap labor or confined to impoverished autonomous zones. Global civil rights movements fighting for Neanderthal equality would explode, demanding structural changes in the design of public transportation, public seating, and specialized healthcare policies. The global medical industry would also have to split into two completely parallel systems. Neanderthals possess an incredibly robust immune system against cold climate pathogens, but they are highly vulnerable to tropical viruses carried by Homo sapiens. A common flu virus that you can cure with a few basic pills could wipe out an entire Neanderthal city without strict quarantine protocols. On the flip side, genetic studies show that the Neanderthal genes we inherited today are linked to rapid blood clotting and depression risks. If they were alive today, Major pharmaceutical companies would invest billions of dollars developing target drugs tailored specifically for the Neanderthal genome, creating a vastly complex medical economy. Despite these severe challenges and social frictions, the parallel existence of two intelligent human species would undoubtedly accelerate the advancement of human civilization. Think of how cultural diversity enriches our world today, and multiply that by 10 when combining two entirely different evolutionary intelligence. Homo sapiens, with our creativity, large-scale social organization, and revolutionary thinking, would pair perfectly with the Neanderthals' endurance, immense physical power, and deep understanding of the natural world. We might have conquered space travel in the previous century, utilizing spacecraft engineered by the practical minds of Neanderthals and piloted by Homo sapiens astronauts, capable of enduring long-term psychological isolation. This mutual complement of skills would serve as a grand engine driving history forward. Ultimately, when the long workday ends, you shut down your computer, step out of the office, and say goodbye to your Neanderthal colleague with a powerful high five that nearly fractures your wrist bones. You walk toward the bus stop under the warm glow of streetlights, breathing in the cool evening air, and realize just how miraculous this planet truly is. It turns out that the absolute solitude of our species today is merely an accident of evolutionary history. And as you arrive home, lying down on your comfortable bed, turning off your smartphone to drift into a deep sleep without worrying about tomorrow's alarm, you will understand that no matter how the world changes, being alive, being able to think, and sharing this planet with those around you will always be the greatest gift nature has ever bestowed upon us.